Hello and welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. I'm your host Jarrod, and joining me tonight are Sean and Liam. How are you, Sean?
Yeah, going pretty well out here. Still no COVID. I've just heard what's happening today out in the uh, Sydney area. It sounds pretty awful, and I'm expecting it to be here soon, unfortunately.
And how are you, Liam?
Aye, all good. I'm up for my COVID shot number 2 on Saturday, so I'm looking forward to the 6-hour flu that everybody's been telling me they've been getting from it, so that should be fun.
Bring on your nanobots. Hey.
Some company called the Umbrella Corporation's doing it, so apparently it'll be fine. You know, a wee joke for anybody that plays the Resident Evil games.
Nerd alert, anyone? All right, so guys, just thanks for listening in. If you haven't subscribed to the Celtic Down Under podcast, please do so in your favourite podcast app. And if you're listening via Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, or Spotify, please leave us a review. So what we'll do is we'll just get, since our last podcast, there's been a couple of games, a couple of good wins. So we'll jump straight into a game. It was Celtic 3, FC Jablonek 0 in the Europa League qualifier. We had a starting lineup of Joe Hart in goals, Ralston right back, Welsh and Starfelt at centre back, Taylor at left back, Rogic, McGregor, Turnbull in the midfield, with Forrest, Furuhashi and Christie up front. Sean, I'll throw to you for a bit of a rundown on the game.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what you guys predicted, but I called it exactly last week. If you can go back and check, called it 3-0. We take the foot off the gas after going 3-0 up, and that's pretty much what happened. Yeah, we dominated possession, 64%, 526 passes, 14 shots, 5 corners, 2 goals from Turnbull, 1 from Forrest. It was a kind of return to form for Turnbull in my eyes. We'll talk a bit more about that later. A few other things that stood out for me was in the first 2 minutes, Kyogo gets put through in goal. And then for some reason, he tried to go around the goalkeeper. And it made me think, how often do players actually try to go around the goalkeeper these days? It's something that like Henrik Larsson used to do habitually. And I guess generally strikers used to do back then. But I can't remember the last time I seen a striker try to go around the goalkeeper rather than try and put it low.
Yeah, it's good to see. Like, as you said, you don't see it very often, but he's actually got the technical ability and the speed to do it. So you got to probably be the right type of player to do that. So yeah, it's good to see. I'm enjoying it, but yeah. Mm-hmm. What was your take on the game, Liam?
Yeah, just to add to the Kyogo thing, actually, you still see that quite a lot in the J League. But I think that's more down to goalkeeping here not being quite as good as it should be. People are a lot more confident here about running around goalkeepers because it's the one area where Japan is a bit weak, is in the goalkeeping front. So you do still see a lot of strikers with the confidence to do that. Do you know, on a side note, just something that struck me during the Jablonek game, we could do a lot worse than sign their keeper as a backup. You know, he looked good. I thought I don't know anything about him, don't know how old he is, whatever, but the Jablonek keeper looked decent, I thought. We could have scored a lot more than 3 that night. But I think more generally, the game showed a different facet to Ange's new Celtic team. The Dundee game was about showboating. That was about showing how good we are and how good we can be and how, when we're in the mood, we can just rip a team to pieces, right? The Jablonek game was showing a different side to how we can be clinical, we can be precise, and we can be we don't ease up until we get the job done. It reminded me very much of the pre-season training where they had Ange mic'd up and he's like, guys, we go, and we don't stop until we celebrate at the end. And to me, that's what the Jablonek game was like. It was like a tougher team than Dundee, but we approached it with the exact same level of intensity. If not perhaps the same, obviously not the same number of goals, whatever, but the same level of intensity and the same level of just incessant attacking flair, and it's really, really good to see.
Surely the highlight of the match, though, was the You'll Never Walk Alone with a full house for the first time in whatever it was, 18 months plus.
I wasn't crying, you were crying.
I was goosebumpy. I was like,
Oh yeah, nah. Exactly the same. No, it was I just couldn't help but grin. Like, you just hear it and you watch the video back over and over, and you just it just feels normal. It feels like what it should be, and that's just what made it such a great thing to see. Like, for me, being over here in Australia my whole life, it's like I'm not used to getting up and going to the game at the stadium. So for me to watch the game is getting up and watching the game here on TV. So the last 12, 18 months, it's pretty much been the same setup, but having no crowd there kind of makes it a little boring, to be honest with you. But now the crowd's back, it's like, this is what I'm used to. This is great. Now to just get these bloody lockdowns over so I can get to the pub, and that'll be even better again.
Yeah. I couldn't tell if it was actually a better rendition than normal, or if it was just because it's been so long. Like, the two that always stick in my mind as being the best was when we played Ronaldinho's Barcelona in 2003, 4, something like that, and Juventus the first time we were in Champions League. They're the two that really stick in my mind as being the best. And that one feels to me like it would be third place, but again, it might just be that it's been so long that I'm just elevating it artificially.
The other thing is about that, and you know me, I'm not slow to slag off Celtic TV, but I love the fact that their presenter on the night was like, okay, I'm just going to shut up and let you all hear this. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was excellent, because it's exactly what I wanted. I was like, let me sit back and drink in this atmosphere that I've been missing for nearly 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because it's like there's nothing worse than watching a sporting event and you're just wanting to see, whether it's like a team's won a grand final and you can just hear the players all huddled up and you're just celebrating and you want to hear that. I don't want to hear the commentator over the top. So yeah, spot on. It was well played.
Yeah, just sprinkle it with some salt and some Sevco supporter tears from the night before.
Hey.
Another shout out to Hunskelper extraordinaire John Dal Thomason while we're at it.
What a guy. What a guy. Oh. And Liam's just dropped off. Yay, fun times. But what we'll do then, Sean, is we'll just jump onto the next game, which was on the weekend in the League Cup. Celtic 3, Hearts 2. We had a starting lineup of Joe Hart in goal, Ralston, Welsh and Starfelt at centre-back, Taylor at left-back, Rogic, McGregor, Turnbull in the middle, and then Forrest, Edouard and Furuhashi up front. What's your take on the game?
Yeah, it was interesting to see Kyogo relegated to left wing. I don't know if that was to do with because he tried to round the goalkeeper and stuffed it up. So, we'll stick you out in the left wing instead. No, but he was pretty good out there as well. He got a bit more rough treatment on the left wing than he usually does at centre forward. I think when you look at the stats, 72% possession, it was something like 80 something in the first half. 647 passes, 30 crosses, 35 shots. That's 3-5. 14 corners. 3-2 beyond flattered Hearts. They were absolutely schooled. They got totally dominated. We should have been out of sight in the first half. Edouard should have had a hat-trick. Again, all in the first half. If Liam's talking about signing some goalkeepers that have performed well against us in the last week. Yeah, Craig Gordon's the one. He was kept Hearts in the game. That save from the Kalmak shot, a few other things. Another stat that jumped out at me was that Celtic committed 14 fouls to Hearts 11. How does that work when you've got possession of the ball for like 72% of the game? How does that work?
Winning it back, pushing up so high and pressing and swarming guys. That's what it's got to be. We had similar things with Ange over here. Like, his teams were always higher, and they were probably the top 1 or 2 in the league, especially Brisbane Roar, when, you know, they were called Rawsalona as their nickname. So, you know, they're getting like 70-80% possession, but then they're probably second, third in the league in terms of fouls against all season as well. So, it happens. You'd rather give the fouls away early up the pitch, trying to win the ball back, than give them away on your goalkeeper's area down there where we were giving them away last year.
Mm-hmm.
On the fouls, actually, of all the people, I didn't think it was going to be Kyogo that would sort out Andy Halliday. That was quite fun to see.
He got hooked at half time as well.
Something about great. The number 8 clashing with Halliday. That's what it's got to be, Liam.
He doesn't seem to like coming to Celtic Park, old Andy Halliday, does he?
Did anyone listen to Open Goal this week to see if he was still giving it Laude or? Nah. No, it was just the sound of him shooting himself, I think.
I'd rather be kicked in the dick repetitively for half an hour straight than listen to Andy Halliday. So,
yeah, he has a dick for sure. There was two. I don't know if I want to roll it into the next section, but there's two things that Kyogo did that really stood out to me. One was in the build-up to the first goal, the through ball with the outside of his foot. You just need to, if you've not seen the highlights yet, you need to go and watch them to see that. Like, you can talk about good goals, but this pass, it went round the corner, round two players, first time with the outside of his right foot, and it wasn't even close. It was 30, 40 yards, something like that away, and onto Forrest, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, how does he even do that? And it looks even better in the replay. And another one was an unsuccessful move that he did, where we had a direct free kick on the edge of the box, and it takes a deflection, bounces back, and Turnbull catches it on the half volley or volley. And what's happened when you watch the replay, when it's coming back out to the edge of the area on the rebound, Kyogo's turned and started moving, running towards goal before Turnbull's even hit the shot. So everyone's standing watching the ball, and Kyogo's facing. He's literally the only person not watching the ball because he's running straight toward goal, and this deflected shot falls at his feet, and he on the volley just puts it wide. But literally everyone else is ball watching. He's already turned and started moving, anticipating that ball. And the chances of it going to him were probably, 5%, something like that. But it did. And he made that run, and he was just unlucky to not get a goal out of it.
The thing I loved about that run, Sean, was that it's one of them ones where he's done it, as you're saying, he's not watching the ball. And the best part on that is that he's doing it in case he's needed, not because he's needed. And to me, that's great to see, because if he's doing that for the sake of it, just on the off chance it happens, look how close it come to coming off. It's great to see someone who's got that level of football intelligence out there on the pitch in our uniform, just doing that in case. It's just because it could happen. It's amazing to see. So with that, I just want to go off the run sheet a little bit to you, but if we're getting this level of performance out of Kyogo already, do you guys think the board should just go to Ange, okay, who else is in Japan? Who else is in Australia? Who else is in Korea that you know? And what sort of budget do you need to get those players in before the end of this window? Because there's 13 days of it left. Do you think that's something that we should be looking at doing?
Liam, you're the expert here.
Yes, absolutely. These are untapped markets. And if you go to, unjustifiably, but Scotland is always compared to England, right? In terms of the size of the league and the competition level, whatever. If you go to England, you will get just say Celtic are going to spend, for example, 15 million to buy 3 or 4 players, just for example, right? 15 million probably get you one effective top championship level or lower Premier League level player, right? You go to Japan, you'll get 5 or 6 players for that. You go to Korea, you'll probably get even more than that. Australia, perhaps even more again. Kyogo looks like a bargain at 4.5 million, but that's actually one of the most expensive players ever to come out of Japan. Just in terms of Japanese players have gone for more than that. Obviously, when Kagawa went to Man United and so on.
But that's from one club in Europe to another club in Europe. But you're
exactly.
saying out of
going
actual
from
Japan?
the J League into Europe, I think that might be the most that anybody's ever paid for one player.
Well, the thing you're saying there, Liam, sorry to cut you off, is that the highest a player has gone for a transfer from the A League to a club anywhere else in the world was like $1.6 million. That's it, Australian. So it's exactly the same for our league out here. Like you look at Tom Rogic, he went for, what was it, like $400,000 or something like that. So that's the sort of levels we're talking about here. And what you're saying about 15 million will get you one or two players from the Championship or low-end Premier League, well, yeah, perfect point is Kyogo at 4.5 million. That's what we paid for Ncham, who's coming out of Man City's academy. Like, if you were to go and buy a guy a similar age, you'd probably have to go shop for that money down in League One. So, in England. So the fact of the matter is, it's a great market for us to get in there. And then with the club launching the Japanese Twitter account as well, it's got like 20-something thousand followers on it now. Good. It's good to see they're starting to look at that market.
I actually do wonder if the appointment of Ange was part of a wider strategy. And maybe I'm crediting the Celtic board with more than they deserve here, but I wonder if it is part of a wider strategy to pivot away from this constantly going to the mediocrity of the English First Division and English Premier League to get basically cast-offs, and instead looking to these emerging markets for guys that are going to come to Europe with a point to prove. Guys like Kyogo. Because not only is he one of the most skillful players I've seen at Celtic in a very long time, he also looks like one of the hungriest. He's fighting for every ball. He's chasing down every half chance. The movement on the guy when he's not even got the ball is phenomenal. I'm not going to be the guy who says it's like Henrik Larsson, but the last time I saw a player with that much energy was in the time when Larsson was playing with us. Let's put it that way.
I'm going to pour a little bit of cold water on this. And I think we're maybe projecting Kyogo onto players that we don't really know here. And I'm going to use a bit of an analogy that I've just came up with on the top of my head here. Where like pretty much every Celtic manager there's been since Dr. Joe has had their guy, their one star gem that they've brought in, like Dr. Joe brought in Moravchik, and then you have like Martin O'Neill brought in Neil Lennon. Neil Lennon brought in Gary Hooper, like Rogers bringing in Scott Sinclair, Dyla bringing in Stefan Johansson, Gordon Strachan bringing in Paul Telfer. Like all of these... that was a joke. Nobody laughed. But all of these ones where like the guys just have like an inside knowledge of a player, and I'm going to say like Postecoglou having this knowledge of Kyogo, it seems like he did just have a kind of inside track that nobody else had. Because look, the guy only had 6 caps. Like at the moment, he still has 6 caps for Japan. How good? He's not the Postecoglou is certainly like now that we're all saying he's amazing. It's not like everyone thought that. He turned down a move to AZ Alkmaar 2 years ago, apparently, or 3 years ago. But if the Japanese national coach doesn't think he's the best, then are there like 23 better players in Japan that we could be tapping into? Like at least.
What I would say in response to that is that Japan's team works a wee bit different from other national teams in the sense that getting your move to Europe might actually result in you getting less caps because you only get called up for the big important games. Because the nature of, like, for example, qualification for the Asian Cup or the World Cup for Japan is usually a piece of piss. It's usually they'll play Mongolia, they'll play Azerbaijan, they'll play Kazakhstan and take 8 or 9 off of them. The only time they ever get a hard game is when they play either Australia or South Korea or Iran. That's the only teams that can really challenge them in Asia. So a lot of the time, these squads are not necessarily the best Japanese players available. It's the players that are in Japan already, and it's the least hassle to call them up, but they're still good enough to win a game. I mean, an example, right? There was a guy called Maeda who used to play for my local team, Matsumoto Yamaga, who now plays for Marinos, Ange's old club. And this guy, kind of similar to Kyogo, but not as good as Kyogo. Guy who can play all across the front three. And he has been getting called up for Japan recently. But that's probably as a result of Kyogo getting his move to Europe. Is that Maeda is a similar type of player who can fill in for Kyogo while he's doing the business in Europe. So I guess in a roundabout way, my point is, don't read too much into the fact that a guy does not have that many caps for Japan as to how good a player he is. Look at what games has he played in and against who has he played, rather than how many games has he played per se.
So
he scored 2 goals in a 14-0 win against Mongolia, I see.
Aye, but that's after 2 years out of the national team.
Yeah.
Kyogo got a really bad injury back in, I think it was 2019, and it was literally a couple of weeks after he made his debut for the national team. He was very unlucky in that sense, and that's possibly why the move at the time to AZ Alkmaar didn't go through either. I don't know the full backstory to it, but I know that he got a really bad injury just after making his first appearance for Japan, because he was being built up as the new thing, the new Nakata, the new Nakamura, and then it all kind of went to the wayside. But then obviously Ange has looked at him at his form at Kobe over the last 18 months and thought, this is a guy that can do it. And I don't just think it's because Kyogo is a particularly good player. I think it's because he's a player who very, very much fits Ange's system and Ange's style of play.
That's what
Kyogo's a good player, but I think Ange's style of play makes him look even better.
And that's what I wanted to tie back to the question I threw to you guys, was because the key thing, in my opinion, is it's not going to be any player in Japan. But Ange will have that institutional knowledge of the clubs over there, the players over there, that he'll be able to cherry pick the guys who will fit his system. And when you look at our lineup at the moment, we need a centre back, we need a right back, we need a left back, and probably a left winger. So if you're looking at those positions, is there anyone in Japan, Liam, you'll know this, is there anyone over there that you think would fit the way Ange plays and would be able to afford off the top of your head?
The obvious one is Ko Itakura. I mean, he's actually at Man City reserves at the moment. He was on loan at Groningen in Holland last year and did quite well. He was, in my opinion, the man of the match in the Olympic semi-final, which Japan narrowly lost to Spain. And he looks ball-playing centre-back, everything we need, confident, assertive, and young as well. He's only 23, so there's going to be a sell-on value there as well in a few years. This is a guy that's got it all, and he's also in the last year of his contract at City. So even if we only got him on a year-long loan, it does in essence become a sort of a try before you buy thing.
So let's go shopping at City again. Yeah.
Well, City reserves, but Itakura was one of the guys in the Japan Olympic squad who really impressed me. I mean, there's other players, but the thing is, with Japan's style of play, you notice the attacking players more than you do the defensive ones. And they have really good creative midfielders. They have a couple of really good strikers. I don't really think that's what we need right now. I think if we sign another striker, it should be a bigger, more of a target man type to give us an alternative to Kyogo. And obviously Japan isn't going to give you that. But if we want a ball-playing centre-back, Ko Itakura's the man, no question.
So what I'll do is I'll use that there to tie it into one of the other things we had on their run sheet, which was players we wanted to discuss, Sean. And you had on there Starfelt, shaky, ? So Liam's saying that you don't really notice the defenders, it's more the attackers. That's how it should be for defenders, right? So what did you want to discuss about Starfelt there, Sean?
Well, that's now 3 games in a row where he's nearly with a pass back that he's really shanked it. And then that penalty he conceded against Hearts, he was dreaming. It was a heavy touch, and then even when he's stuffed the touch up, he doesn't know where his man is. Just kicks out at the guy. It was just lackadaisical defending. Like, when you think about it, this guy was, I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, he had all the passing stats coming out of Russia, but then Philip Helander was preferred to him in the Swedish national team for the Euros. So I don't know. That's not a positive review in my book. Still give him a chance. He might develop, but he's looking, after 4 games, pretty shaky and doesn't inspire me with confidence. I'm kind of, and it's a lot of money to write off if he's not going to make it, 4 million or whatever it is. But I think we should be looking to. Does anyone think he looks better than Welsh? I don't think so. Welsh looks like the most competent defender we've got right now. So if whoever we sign, or even when Julian comes back, surely Starfelt's going to be third choice.
I've got a question then, Sean. Who would you rather? Bombscare Bitten or Shaky Starfelt?
Oh, Starfelt. No question. But I'd rather have John Suter from Hearts over the two of them.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And that's not even thinking outside the box. We've played this guy 2 times in the last month. He's looked all right. I've not seen Liam Scales, but can he be any worse? And at 15% of the price,
The thing that comes to mind with me when I think about Starfelt, Dedrick Boyata. No doubting there's a player in there somewhere. There is ability, there is quality, but lack of concentration and basic mistakes. Now, Boyata did improve over time, and I think Starfelt will as well, but we don't have time. The reality is we're playing the Huns in 10 days' time. We don't have time for a player. It takes 6 months to find his feet. Starfelt needs to start performing, and that's harsh and it's unfair on him, but that's just the reality of playing for Celtic.
In terms of ability and style, he reminds me most of Glenn Louvens and players that I've seen in recent years.
That'd be another fair comparison. Yeah.
I was going to say Thomas Rogney, but yeah, similar sort.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing for me, like, where you're talking about, we don't have time, and it reminds you of Boyata. There was a joke on one of the earlier podcasts that I said where our centre-backs is basically like a Bermuda Triangle. They come in as Celtic and they suddenly forget how to defend for a full 90 minutes. It's like they come in and there's just like this, got that much of the ball that they're suddenly like, oh, hang on, what are we doing here? Oh, no, I'm just going to watch my man and let someone run off me or whatever. Watch this guy and let a guy run off me. And there's just no communication. There's always mental lapses there. And, like, I know I said, oh, Andrew's teams, you score 3, we'll score 4. So it's not just that, because you go back to under Lennon, similar stuff was happening. You go back under Rogers, similar stuff was happening. You go back under Dahlia or Ronnie, similar stuff was happening. So it's an ongoing thing we've had at the club for a good 6-7 years. It happens, and I don't know what to do about it, to be honest with you, because as you said, Sean, all the stats were right for him. All the talk was that he was going to be a good signing for us, but what's happened? Has he come into that Bermuda Triangle and suddenly forgot how to defend because suddenly, oh, we've got the ball? Or is it because he's getting played as a left centre back when he should be played as a right centre back because he's so one-footed? What could it be?
Yeah, well, I think there's probably both of those things, and all of the things that we've discussed, and it makes you wonder, like, if we can't, is that something we should be given a bigger factor in when signing these players? Is what is the style of team that they're coming from? Like, are they going to be exposed when they come to us? And it seems quite often the answer is yes. And
the same thing happened to Jack Hendry. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And could we be doing worse than putting in our youngsters who have yes, lack of experience, a lack of nous and gamesmanship, a lack of physicality. But one thing they have done is developed within that system. So they have the training and awareness, and the other stuff is what comes with experience and develop and growing physically.
Perfect example of that was Owen O'Connell. He came in some early on Champions League qualifiers. I liked the way he played. And then he suddenly lost his confidence, got dropped, come in, made a mistake, got dropped, and then suddenly he went into that Bermuda Triangle. But it's like, I'd rather Dane Murray over Bitton. I'd rather Welsh over Bitton. I'd rather Starfelt over Bitton. But it's that sort of situation here where it's like, well, who do we give the games to?
There's another element to this that I think maybe we've overlooked, but I'm sure we've talked about it before. But I wonder if it's the same psychological issue that we've historically had with goalkeepers as well. Because Fraser Foster and Arthur Boric aside, we've got a history of dodgy goalkeepers over the last few years as well. It goes back beyond just Varkas, right? And I wonder if it is that they come from teams where they've got a lot to do. And then they come to Celtic, where Celtic traditionally have 60+% possession, mostly on the attack. Occasionally you're called in to do something. And I wonder if it's like that with Starfelt, because, Starfelt played for Rubin Kazan, who I think they finished 5th or 6th in the Russian league last year. A good, top 10. I mean, you play the top 10 teams in Russia, you're not a mug, right? But a team that are going to probably spend more time defending than they are attacking, because they're not a team that traditionally wins the title. They're not a Spartak Moscow or a CSKA or whatever.
They're the Russian St Johnson. There you go.
Well, aye, pretty much. I mean, they're probably a good bet to finish at least 8th, and that's probably about it. And a team that will defend more than they will attack. And suddenly he comes to Celtic and the roles are reversed. And maybe mentally he hasn't adjusted to that. And if you look back historically, I think there's a few players where that's been the case, is that they switch off because they're not as called upon to do as much as they were before.
That's surely a red flag for Joe Hart then, who struggled in an England jersey in games where he was doing not a lot. Got shipped out of Man City when the Pep revolution started. Didn't get a look in at Tottenham. These are all teams where they're dominated, and Joe Hart has not survived in that environment or flourished.
Potentially, yeah. I like Joe Hart and I hope he's going to make the grade, but that is a concern. Aye. If my theory that this is a psychological thing that affects players specifically coming to Celtic, then he's another example of it. Definitely, potentially.
How do you think Joe Hart's going anyway at the moment, guys?
I think he made a couple of good saves in that Jablonek game. 2 brilliant saves, actually, which was refreshing because it's been, I don't know, I need to go back a long way to put together 2 saves by Celtic goalkeepers, back to Craig Gordon, I'd say. So that was good.
The League Cup final.
Yeah, okay, yeah, something like that, yeah. When was the last time you've seen something like that? So maybe when we go to Ibrox, we'll get to see, I guess, I hope we don't get to find out how good Joe Hart is, but that could well be that the case. When we start to play Sevco and when we start to play these better European teams, that's when we find out. That was when Foster, Sean and Craig Gordon did reasonably well. It was when people like Doris de Vries got found out. Yeah, Doris, great, you can pass the ball, but, Would
have been better off with Doris Day, anyway.
Yeah.
The original cabbage hands.
Yeah. I don't know what he had on Brendan Rodgers, but it must have been juicy.
Anyhow. There's plenty of things you could say about there as potentials, but let's just move it along a bit. So,
anybody been to Thailand recently? No, let's not go there. All right, okay.
Fucking Liam. All right. You had one last player you wanted to discuss, Sean, was Turnbull, back on form. It's funny because people were saying that he wouldn't suit Ange's style of play. I was kind of that thought, but at the same time, I was like, he's young enough to adapt. So, yeah, I think he's doing well. It's good to see.
Yeah, I was very much on the bus of like when we the first Jablonek game. I think after that I was like, look, I love Turnbull, player of the year last year. Senior and young player of the year, but he's not started well at that point, and I'm not saying ship him out or he's not fitting the system. I'm just saying he needs a spell out the team, and what he actually needed was to drop back into number 8, and has looked brilliant since he's done that. And those 2 goals he scored against Jablonek were great. He's been, I think, maybe been deeper, is suiting him with his range of passing. Yeah, I mean, since Rogic just came into the team, Turnbull's looked great. Brilliant, to be honest.
It's certain players just don't really suit certain managers' systems that you'd think up front. Like everyone thought under Lennon, Rogic was almost sold for $2 million last year. He's never been a Lennon type player. First stint under Lennon, he went over. He then spent 6 months there. Then got loaned out to Melbourne Victory over here. And who was the manager who brought him in over here? Ange Postecoglou. So that's going way back to like 2013, 2014. That's how far back these guys go. So I had my doubts that Rogic would get back to those levels purely on fitness. But as in terms of a player, I knew he would suit the way Ange likes to play. But at the same time, I'm like, how are you going to fit Turnbull and you're going to fit Rogic in the same team? Well, putting Turnbull back into the 8, that's been a godsend. Now you can fit both of them into the team, 2 really creative players alongside Kelmack. It's great to see. I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's definitely happy to see it happening again, and he's surely going to be in the Scotland team at the next games.
Yep. Okay.
That's one where I'm proud to say that I was wrong, because when I saw Turnbull and Rogic playing in the same team, I questioned that. I said I think they might be too similar. They might not be able to work together, but they have, and it's been great to see.
Couple of transfer rumours. Celtic have apparently had a £2.5 million bid accepted by Legia Warsaw for Josip Juranovic. He's a right back from Croatia. He's 26 years old and he's played 10 caps for the Croatian national team. And he was in the Euro squad. So that looks like we could potentially actually give old mate Ralston some competition and someone to give him a rest or challenge him for that spot, which, as we said last week, that's his jersey to lose now. He's been playing really well, but if we bring Juranovic in, absolutely wrapped with that. On paper, he looks like just the sort of player we need. What's your thoughts on that, Sean?
Yep, as you say, he's got the right profile for what we're looking for at the moment. It fits into, which is interesting because the typical profile for a summer, well, for any transfer window for us, is players under 23 that can become better and sell on. But this transfer window, it's been players in the 24 to 27 range. We want to win the league this year. These guys need to be first team ready, and we're going to pay 3 to 5 million for them, and hope that works. So this kind of fits right into that mold. I'm surprised that his price is so low, to be honest, for someone who's been at the Euros this summer.
Last year of his contract.
Is that what it is? Okay. So yeah, I mean, look, he's not going to be like, do you know what I mean? Like I said, he's not going to go into the Arsenal or Man United after he leaves us, but he certainly should, with that profile, should be one of the best right backs to Scotland.
Yeah, but it'll be good as bringing Ralston his drink, backing him up, looking after him.
No, I think this is a great bit of business. It really is, if it goes through. Again, like, if you go back to what I was talking about a minute ago with the problem with Starfelt being that it came from a mid-table team in a previous league. Legia Warsaw, the champions of Poland, and although they probably get more of a challenge than Celtic do on a weekly basis, again, it's a guy who's used to winning and probably used to playing in a dominant team. which is definitely a good part of the profile that we should be more actively looking for.
Absolutely.
Plus, if he's friends with Artur Boric, he probably hates the Huns already.
Yes.
Get him in. And then there's another.
If the Holy Goalie recommends him, he'll do for me.
And then we got another rumoured where apparently Celtic have been linked with a £3 million bid for Giorgos Giakoumakis, a Greek striker who scored 26 years old, 26 goals in 30 games while being relegated from VVV Venlo over in the Eredivisie. Again, another 26-year-old. So it looks like that's the theme, as you're saying there, Sean, which is good because that's a massive gap with the experience we lost over the last couple of seasons. It's good to be bringing in some experienced players. So if he comes in, I hope he's decent in terms of he's exactly what we want. I hope he's not like the last Georgios that we had as a striker, because I wasn't a massive fan. Don't come at me in the comments, Samaras lovers. But yeah, it'd be great if we bring Giakoumakis in, because we need another striker, and he's that bigger player that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, 26 goals in any season, particularly when your team's getting relegated, is unreal, and not in a powder puff league either. The Eredivisie is a good league, so I don't know how he's so cheap. Again, it must be 1 year left in his contract, sort of thing.
Exactly.
That's I don't know why we're not competing. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the sort of player you'd expect to be going to like some English Championship team. The only thing I can think of is that teams are staying away from these players of this age bracket that they don't perceive sell-on value, and that's the only thing I can think of. Because we should be, that as well. But we should be getting out competed for players like this by pretty much everyone in the lower EPL and upper English Championship, unless the players are not as good as they are perceived to be. But
this is the sort of signing that reminds me of back in the day when Ricky Van Wolfswinkel went to Norwich, right? And he's banging in goals for shits and giggles in Europe. Goes over there, and he did nothing in that league. But that's the sort of team that I would have expected in previous years, a team coming up from the league below, or a lower end team who's like might take a flyer on him to go and get this guy for maybe 10, 12 million pound. And the fact if we can pick him up for 3, then that'd be a bit of a steal.
seems like someone AZ Alkmaar should have signed to replace their striker.
The funny thing is that what I said before about defenders, in the case of strikers, actually the opposite applies. If you've got a striker coming from a club that, despite probably not getting that many chances in a game, he still manages to score plenty of goals, that is a really good sign, because it shows that he's got that creative ability to make things happen for himself, even if the rest of the team aren't making it happen. So yeah, I know almost nothing about this guy apart from his statistics, but I think, it fits the profile and it fits the statistical edge of what we need. And from what I've briefly seen of him on YouTube, he looks like a much more physically imposing forward than Kyogo, which is, again, offers us something different. We're going to need different options for different teams.
My one question, and I haven't looked at his stats, so I don't know, but 26 goals in 30 games for a relegated team. So if he's playing with a team like us that dominates the ball, you'd think he'd score comparable level of goals in our league. However, if his team's getting relegated and he's the striker, how many of those 26 goals were penalties? That's my question. That's what I'd like to know, because
Did not check.
Really, I'm not trying to play it down, but if he's the main man and he's the striker and he's taking penalties, even if like 8 or 10 of them were penalties, then that's still only 16, 18 goals in 30 games, which is still a bloody good strike rate. So I think that would be great. But if for some unforeseen reason 20 of them were penalties, then you don't want to bring in, the Greek Tavernier, do you?
Or Peter Van Vossen. That's a deep callback there.
Greek Tavernier, wouldn't that be Taverna? Anyway.
Yeah, so what we'll do, Sean, do you want to give a little rundown on the Colts and the women's team?
Yep, so the Colts have had 3 games since we last podcasted. They beat Annan Athletic 2-0 in the Challenge Cup, which is a great result against a professional team. They've got Morton in the next round on the 4th of September. Followed that up with a 10-0 win against Vale of Leithen, with 5 goals for Owen Moffat. So I'd say he's knocking on the door with his performances lately. And then they had I don't know, disappointing is the word, but they dominated against Civil Service Strollers, but finished the game 1 each. Dane Murray scored an 86-minute header, and then the Civil Service Strollers equalised in injury time. So we were on quite a winning run before that, but we're still undefeated in a few games. The women beat Hart 2-0 in the League Cup group stage, and following that, they've flown out to Norway to play Levante tonight. The kickoff is at 5 p.m. UK time, so presumably everyone will have missed it by the time they hear this. But if they do beat Levante, then the follow-up game to that will be on Saturday against probably Rosenborg, but if not Rosenborg, it'll be against Minsk on Saturday.
Owen Moffat, dude, what a player.
Yeah, he looks it.
One for the future, I'm telling you, from what we're seeing there. So, and by the future, I mean second half of this season.
The way Mikey Johnson's injuries are going, he's going to be past him pretty soon.
Yep, exactly. All right.
The question that I saw being raised this week about the Colts, and I'd like to see what you guys think about this. People are saying that, like, with them winning a game 10-0 and looking pretty comfortable in most of the games that they play, is this level of competition beneath them? I don't think it is. I think it's a good level for them to find their feet at. And but what I do think is that from next season they should be allowed to be promoted, because if it gets to a point where their true level is the Scottish second or third division, then that's even better,
Yeah, I think that. I mean, this is kind of an addition for it, isn't it? For League Two. I mean, when you're beating any team 10-0, I mean, the women did the same last year with Hearts. I can't remember if it was 10, but it was something like that. So it happens across, whenever there's non-professional levels involved, you do get that kind of disparity within a league. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, from a selfish point of view, I think it's great for us. These guys are getting games on their legs against men, ex-professionals, whereas last year they were sitting with a thumb up their arse. So it's definitely a great thing for us. But is it good for the Lowland League? I mean, more money. Is it better for their competition? Maybe. I'm not sure.
I do think that ultimately we should follow the same model as Barcelona and Real Madrid and have Celtic and Rangers teams playing in the lower echelons of the actual professional league rather than the West of Scotland league. But that's just my take on it. I think possibly Championship, possibly League One is where we should eventually end up at.
I like the German model on that front, where they've got their feeder teams in, but if you're in the Bundesliga, then the highest that your team can play in is the third tier, so 2 levels beneath where your first team is. So you can't have it like in Spain, where you've got Barcelona in the top tier and then you've got Barcelona B in the second tier. There's that bit of a gap there. So it's if you're dominating in the third tier, then you still go on loan to someone in the second tier the following year, and then you break into the first team the year after that if all things go into plan. So I like that idea. So I wouldn't want to see any of the Colts teams, if they did go into the pyramid, I wouldn't want to see them pushing up anything higher than League One.
I'd be fine with that. I think League One's a good level for them. Yeah. I used to go and watch Clyde from time to time when I lived in Cumbernauld, and they were round about that level. So that's
What's it called?
Cumbernauld. No, I do think it was that'd be a good level for the young boys to get blooded, because there's some good players at that level who have maybe played at a higher level before and are on the way down, and it's a physically tough league as well, which will give the boys a bit of steel, which they're going to need to cut it against the Dundees and St Johnsons of this world if they ever do make it to the first team.
No, it's a good place for them to be playing at, and at the end of the day, I'm just happy that the kids actually get in the game. That's the main thing for me. That once the reserve league went away, and then everything, we've got a good youth academy. We put a bunch of cash into that every year, so it's good to see the players coming through, getting some competitive games under their belts. So, yeah, I hope they can figure out a solution to this long term, because I like having the 3 teams to discuss on the podcast. It's brilliant.
Yep, agreed.
All right, next topic.
I'm actually really looking forward to that women's game tonight. It's going to be a nice wee appetizer for the main game later on, because they almost run into each other time wise. So.
You going to be up, Liam, or for both?
Yep.
Or
I'm going to pull an all-nighter because I don't have work again until Tuesday. So
hey, he's on Scotland time. Get the bucky out. Off you go.
Hey, two bottles of bucky arrived yesterday, but they are getting saved for the Huns game. So
you're going to be in no state. Absolutely no state that night. Perfect. All right.
We need to do a live show if we win that night. No question.
Hey, live show. I've actually booked something up for that. I'm trying to come up with a concept here, but I've got to get people to come to the party. We'll figure something out. Watch this space, everyone.
Nice one.
All right. So there was a story today about UEFA is in discussions to introduce a salary cap for all clubs competing in the UEFA Champions League. Not just Champions League, but all UEFA competitions as part of their financial fair play rules. So what they're talking about is basically the cap that they're looking at is about a 70% fixed percentage of the club's revenue that can be spent on players' wages. What that would mean is that currently on last season's figures, but this is taking out no tickets and match day revenue and that sort of stuff, Celtic's wages to income was at 77% of our total revenue. Rangers was at 73%. Now, what they're also talking about is possibly bringing in a luxury tax so that if any team is found to be over that 70% rule, then they have to pay a luxury tax. They haven't figured it out yet, but that would then get paid out to the rival clubs in their league that they are breaching. So basically how that works in the NBA, to just make it a bit clearer, is if you've got a salary cap of 100 million or 105 million like it is in the NBA, you could pay up to 105 million. If you go above that, for every dollar over that you have to pay a luxury tax of $1. That's the way they do it over there. So if you've got your squad of 15 players and you're paying 130 million, then you're paying 25 over the salary cap, so you have to pay another 25 million in luxury tax that then gets distributed amongst every other club that's not in the luxury tax. So say if in Scotland you had us, you had Rangers, you had Hibs, Aberdeen, 4 clubs over their 70% cap, which is what I think it would be, then realistically, we'd all have to pay our luxury tax into a pot. That pot would then get distributed amongst the other 8 clubs in our league. So I think that's a way to try and force clubs to come to the party on financial fair play and also to rein in the wages, because look at what's going on in Paris with, okay, they're not spending money on transfers, but they're paying ridiculous wages. So I don't know. I'd like to hear your take on that. I'll throw to you first, Liam, because you're a resident communist. And I'd like to get your take on what your thoughts are on this.
Well, comrades, first of all, I do think it's quite funny that great bastion of capitalism, America, has some of the most socialist systems in the world when it comes to administrating their sports, their sports transfers. But that's another story. I think this is a good idea in principle. At the European level, I think it's a great idea if it decentralizes the financial power that your big five leagues, England, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain have. If it decentralizes that and puts some money the other way, I'd like to return to the time when you would have, teams like Ajax, Rosenborg, Dynamo Kiev, Benfica, legitimately challenging to be the best in Europe. Celtic as well, obviously.
Your Red Star Belgrades are up there as well. Your Marseilles.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch of the Milan teams. Yeah. No financial doping back then.
Yep. Back then, you could obviously bring in quality players, but you had to produce a certain degree of your own quality as well. The problem is, at a Scottish level, I have no confidence whatsoever in our administrators to administer that fairly. I could see a certain club not being held to the same standards as the rest of us and being allowed to continue their financial doping under a different guise. And that is the main problem.
No.
That would never happen in Scotland.
Oh, Sean, if you believe that, I've got some magic beans to sell you, mate.
Everything is above board in the Scottish football game. He said sincerely.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a good idea, but my instinctive reaction is that teams like Man City will just cook the books in some way that they already do to get around financial fair play. So I'm not sure how it would be realistically enforced. But the other thing that kind of just surfaced in the back of my mind is it might actually work against us, because we'd be the ones, paying out to Scottish teams. Fine, probably not a lot, and I'm okay if we're paying a small amount if we're over budget and a year on year. But what I'm more thinking is that it's going to hamper us in the sense that teams like like your Nice and Leicester City, like the teams like that are going to get a financial gain, and the teams that we're competing against in Europe are going to get a gain. That's one of my worries.
I understand that point of it. For me, what I'm looking at is there's no financial fair play in Scottish football. Rangers don't put their paperwork forward. They don't publish their accounts. So if this is something that is going to force them to have to do it if they want to compete in a European league, then, okay, maybe it's a necessary evil. And the talk is, it's not necessarily going to be what is happening in the NBA in America. It's not going to be straight away from the salary cap. It could be over a 3-year period. What they're doing with financial fair play, you can't have a loss over a 3-year period. Well, it could be over a 3-year period. What was your total revenue? Okay, 70% of that for wages over this 3-year period was how much? Were you over it then? Okay, if you were over it, if you breach it by 10% over a 3-year period, then you got to pay. It could be something like that. They'll figure it out. But the test case, because the closest thing to what they're looking to do in the UEFA competitions is what Spain has brought in Liga, and it's kind of what's absolutely screwing with Barcelona at the moment with their $2.2 billion of debt. And that's the first league that's actually trialling this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly put shockwaves there in Spain, so there'll be maybe there is some sort of airtight way to do it that we're seeing in Spain right now.
There has been a financial reckoning due to hit European football for years, particularly England and Spain. And I think it's good that if one of the good things to come out of this horrible pandemic that's hurt so many people is that it forces teams to be more financially realistic about things, and that would be a good thing for the future. That I think Barcelona are the only publicly known example of this. I'll bet there's a lot of big European clubs right now in similar circumstances who simply haven't released the books yet.
Inter Milan are one that's in the same bat.
Mm-hmm.
So they're the two biggest that I can think of off the top of my head. But this bubble's going to burst sooner or later, and it's going to get ugly. But the only thing keeping the majority of the English clubs going is their TV contracts. Let's be honest. If they were to lose their TV money overnight, that would be the reckoning for European football, and then some. It would just be all sorts of a mess. So I just want teams to live within their means at the end of the day. Like, we're over here with our A-League as a salary cap league, and some years the standard's good, other years the standard's absolute rubbish because of salary caps. But for me, I'm used to seeing that. I'm used to that. Like, you've got a certain amount to spend, you've got a few marquees on top. That's fine. Like, that works for us, but what works over here isn't necessarily going to work in Europe. But there's got to be a better way, because are these football clubs just franchises that are owned by billionaires, or are they institutions of your local community that you're going to want to not just be there for you now, but for your kids and your grandkids to be able to support in the future? Because if that's what you want it to be that institution that's going to be there for your future generations, maybe these clubs have got to pull back a bit and rein themselves in and live a bit more within their means.
I mean, on a similar note, I watched the Man United Leeds game at the weekend, and the amount of people there who were clearly just on a jolly and were not particularly fans of either club. I mean, I saw a guy, right? You probably saw the photo doing the rounds on Twitter. The caption was "Everything wrong with English football" in one photo, and it's a guy holding up a scarf that's like half and half Man United and Leeds. I mean, those two clubs fucking hate each other, right? The idea of somebody being a fan of both those clubs is utterly laughable, and it shows you that English football has become a circus. It has become an overpaid circus, and rather than try to move away from that, Italy, Spain, to a lesser degree France, are all getting dragged into the same shit because they are trying to replicate the English model rather than realising that media hype alone does not a football league make.
It's like keeping up with the Joneses. That's what they're trying to do over there.
Aye, exactly.
All right, so what we'll do is we'll jump into previewing the game that's tonight against AZ Alkmaar. So, Sean, do you want to preview that game for us?
Yeah, AZ finished third in the Eredivisie last season. So, something that I said in a previous pod around Midtjylland was I hadn't had time to check how their squad had changed from the previous season. Well, I took the time this week to do my research, and Alkmaar have shed some talent since last season. They sold a centre forward to Monaco for 15 million, a right winger to Nice for 13.5 million. So this is pounds, so double that for dollars. A goalkeeper to Brest for 4.5 million pounds, and Bruno Martins Indy, the centre back, the Dutch international, he has returned to Stoke after his loan. So they've lost some really top talent. And the replacements that have signed have been from the Dutch league, the Swedish league, and the Danish league for 6 million in total. So there's been at least from a financial perspective, there's been a bit of a talent drain there. They've also, their best player, captain, Teun Koopmeiners, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but he's been out the team recently because he's having a bit of a fight with the board about the transfer value that they've put on him and how he wants to leave and stuff like that. On transfermarket.com, he's listed as 16.5 million euros. And I think that's where his contention is and why he's been out of the team. He plays alongside his brother, Pierre, who's 21. I believe they both play centre mid. So that's an interesting one. And there's a couple of, Coop Mainers was the only name I'd heard of, apart from the fact that there's two other famous names in their team. One is the goalkeeper, Sam Westerveld, who's 19, and his dad played for Liverpool. I don't know if you remember. I think it was Liverpool and Everton, maybe. Sander Westerveld, do you remember him, Liam?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And the other one is Maxim Hulit, son of Rud, whose mother is also a Cruyff.
Does he have the crazy dreads? That's the real question.
He doesn't. No, he has some very...
Lift your game, son. Lift your game.
Yeah. but he's only 20, and he's playing left back for AZ Alkmaar from quite a rich pedigree.
Let's keep an eye on him. If he plays well in these games, sign him up.
Yeah.
If we knock them out, then we should get him signed up.
But yeah, I'm definitely not as worried about these guys as I would have been about PSV. It's still going to be a challenge, I'm not going to lie, but I think we'll win tonight 2-0, and then I think we'll draw in Holland next week, probably one each. Yeah, that's my prediction.
Just going to jump in quickly there, Sean. You said about Bruno Martins Indy's going back to Stoke. Well, apparently I was listening to another podcast and he's actually back there at the moment this season.
He's back at AZ?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, so he is. Oh, I just looked at the outgoings. I didn't see that. I missed him on the incoming. You're right, he is there, sorry.
But at the same time, like what you were just saying, like if this was PSV, I'd be worried. We go into this game, I'm looking at it going, with the form we're in and the progress for us going forward here and the way they're playing at the moment, I reckon this tie's a 50-50. I'm being honest with you. I'm not getting overcomplicated. I don't think we're going to get absolutely poleaxed. Could go either way. So the key thing is, with this first game being at Celtic Park and there not being away goals being an issue, we've got to go out there and put a marker down. We've got to try and score 2 or 3 and get a bit of aggregate there. So if we win 2-0, as you said, or 3-0, great, perfect. Then we go over there. If we can get a draw or whatever, or even lose 1-0 over there, who cares? We're through. So that's the key thing for me is we've got to get out there and we've got to get at it early in this match. And yeah, I'm hoping for a 2 or 3-0.
Yeah.
I remember when Michelin put us out, and I said to you both, I said, the frustrating thing is in about 5 or 6 weeks' time, we're going to have a team that will batter teams like Michelin. And I think we're getting towards that now because, again, a month ago, if you said to me we're playing AZ Alkmaar for a place in the Europa League, I'd say, well, that's it, we're humped, game over. But now, I agree with Jarrod, I think this could go either way. The next 2 weeks could pretty much make or break our season. If we can get past Alkmaar and either draw with or beat Rangers, we're set up. We're set up for a very good season. Lose those 2 games and it's an entirely different complexion. The good thing is with the European game is not quite as essential as it was before, because even if we lose, we're into the conference. And although it is less money, there's not that drastic a difference in monetary terms between the Conference League and the Europa League. Once you're out the Champions League, you're out of the big money regardless. But yeah, I'm going to say 3-1 tonight. I think we'll win 3-1, which means the second leg will still be a bit tricky. But a 3-1 win, and then hopefully that's enough for us to see it out over there, and then take care of business at Ibrox on the 29th as well.
Yes. Anything else to add, Sean?
Well, if we're going that far ahead for predictions, I reckon we'll win our next 2, then draw the following 2, which would be the Netherlands and the Ibrox.
But before the Ibrox game, we can't skip the St Mirren game on Saturday at Celtic Park. So What are you guys thinking about that? I'm thinking what's going to happen is we'll go with a pretty loaded team now for tonight's game, and then there'll be some rotation on Saturday for that game. But I'm still thinking it'll be a 2-3 nil win or 3-1 or whatever. Because, that's what we do at Celtic. We concede the odd goal here and there.
Yeah, Christie will be back in 4-1.
I was going to say 4-1 as well. Yeah. If Abada plays tonight, I don't think he'll play on Saturday, or vice versa. If he doesn't play tonight, he'll play on Saturday.
Well, they've said he's available tonight, and Christie isn't. But Christie should be fine for the weekend.
Right, good.
There's your answer, Liam.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Final thoughts for the podcast. Over to you, Sean.
11 more sleeps till the Glasgow Derby.
Liam?
Final thought. Okay. Tonight is a big game for Celtic, but it is one of several big games we're going to play this season. I hope we're going to win. I think there's a good chance we're going to win. But if we don't, let's not all throw the toys at the pram. Let's just keep the heat. It's one game. And this is a team that a couple of weeks ago I would fully have expected to demolish us. So the fact that we're even in such a short space of time into a position where we're thinking we can beat them is remarkable progress. And let's just remember that.
Hail, hail, everyone.
Hail, hail.
Oh, well.